Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 3:30 on a Monday, middle of the month, it must be. Good to see everybody. Do click on a thumbs up if you are a regular. Let me know who's here, because this side of things I have absolutely no indication unless you say hello as to who is present. And hopefully, hello Keith, good to see you, good to see you. Martin, good to see you. That's good to see you, that's really nice. That's lovely, and thank you for your comment the other day. Jenny, hello. Janine, how nice, good to see you. That's great, excellent. And there's 6 more of you that are not wanting to press the button. Oh, Nancy, hello. And Melinda, hello, good to see you. I pinged back another email, Melinda, because I accidentally erased your the one that you sent to me. I couldn't get it out of the recycle bin. So as I said in the email, hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. Steve, hello, good to see you. Good to see you, Steve. How is it over at your side of Yorkshire? Barbara V, good to see you. That's nice. Yeah, lovely. Thanks a lot. Jim, good to see you. David, very good. Well, that's because, David, it is a long time. And last week, I had to cancel at the last minute, which was why some of you commented on the very kind of blunt image that was up there, which was basically just saying, look, sorry, can't do it today, come back next week. So I apologize for that, but sometimes I think, oh, hello, Sally, nice to see you. So wet over there in Yorkshire, Steve. Oh, okay, this side of the world isn't too bad, but as you would have seen from the thumbnail, very, very cloudy. Anyway, so last week I had to cancel it, and there's no excuse for that except that pressure of other things that came up. So every now and again I may have to cancel, but I'll let you know as much as I have, give you as much warning as possible. Those of you that are new or are watching this on playback, then hopefully there will also be an edited version, because the lives that we are used to here are quite meandering chit chats, as the regulars will know, and most of you are regulars. We do tend to cover all sorts of subjects, and I do encourage all of you, and hopefully some of you have got questions that you want to ask particularly. And Sally, actually, I'm going to respond to one of yours that you asked, so do hang in there. Tom, hello, good to see you. What on earth is that? I'm not sure what that emoji is, but there you go. Yeah, okay. So do dive in with any questions whenever you want, because really this is about you guys. We'll try to answer those queries that are nagging. Tess, good to see you. Nice to see you. I was about to say, if any of you that are on the house healing mentoring course have got specific questions about the house healing, do chuck them in. Do put them in there. And if they're not too specific, then we'll see if we can cover them off, because it's a good opportunity to sort of talk things through. If they're very specific, then obviously we'll cover them off in some other way. But do just dive in when you want. Today, what are we going to cover? Well, what did I put in Facebook and on YouTube? Live Q&A about dowsing, house healing, the power of subjective experience, or the subjective experience of reality, the subtle realms just beyond our 5 senses, and all of that. And basically, Mercury Touch, what a great name. Hi, good to see you. Basically, that blurb was saying, I have no idea what we're going to talk about today. And to be frank, I still don't know. But what I'm going to do is to dive in with a question that Sally actually raised in an email. And depending on whether or not I manage to successfully answer this, Sally, you can let me know. Hello, Marjorie, good to see you. Nice and early over there in California. Hilda, good to see you too. Fantastic. I was just saying, Hilda, if anybody on the house healing course has specific questions, pop them in here. We'll see if we can answer some of them as well. Happy to take those. So, Sally, let me know if this does answer your question or not, right? Afterwards. Now, a lot of people, with all of this work in the subtle realms, when we're connecting to that reality that is just beyond the physical 5 senses, Excellent. Okay, I'll come back to your question in a sec, Jenny. Sally, I'm glad Sally's all ears. No Mercury touch. There's lots of energy centers, and that's why I ask you to actually only ask for the most powerful and beneficial to start with when you're starting out. We'll come back around and cover that one again in a second. Let me come back to Sally. What I was saying was that when people are fairly new, or they're stepping into this connection with the subtle realms, with the sixth senses, if we want to call it that, so the world that's just beyond our five senses, they sometimes do so with impressions of what it's going to be like that are rather a bit too grand. Now, Sally actually is not one of those people, but sometimes you can get the impression that from a lot of from some mediums, spirit mediums, and from some people that are very, very sensitive, that there's a whole world they're experiencing that is absolutely wow. And therefore, depending on what your individual experience of wow is, your classification of wow, right, you expect to sort of enter into this new world and this new way of seeing the world that is almost a constant wow. Now, it's not necessarily like that, because for one thing, it's called subtle energy and the subtle realms for a reason, and that is because actually it is and can be quite subtle. So in order to sit and listen to the quiet voices that you can hear, or the quiet impressions of the world as it breathes, if you want to even think about it like that, then you do have to focus in, and you focus very gently and very specifically and very deeply, as deeply into your inner universe as you possibly can, in order to get as immersed as you possibly can. But what I always say, and you will have, as regulars, you will have heard this before, don't compare your experience to somebody else, because for a start, somebody else's experience may not actually be the experience that you think they're having, right? So, as I've said this before, if somebody has an experience of seeing a vision, or they see a spirit come through a room, and they go, "Wow, did you see that? That was amazing. They were so clear, and they were just hovering there, and it was silent, and the person, that spirit looked at me, and it was so gripping." Now, that means that you have an interpretation of what that experience would have been like if you'd had that experience. But as we know, that is the nature of the subjective experience. It's completely and utterly unique. So me, with my quite often very understated emotional responses, I'm a typical Englishman. I don't sort of display a lot of emotion, really. So unless I get really upset. So to me, the wow would actually be quite subdued. It'd be quite like, "Oh, well, that was amazing," To somebody else that's far more extrovert and outgoing and generally flamboyant in their emotional expressions, then they would go, "Yeah, wow," the whole lot, right? So what I'm saying is, don't compare, because it sets your expectations for something. Just experience it, do what you possibly can and experience what you experience. Now, to come back to Sally's question, because actually none of that really reflects Sally's question. Sally says when she's trying to meditate, then she will quite often use some of this relaxing music, and as she says, because it sends her off into the most wonderful world of imagination, walking and dancing and exploring her way through her own private paradise. Fantastic. And meeting all manner of spirits and guides and light and love along the way. But I wonder if this is not really what meditation is supposed to be. It's actually, she says, it's actually quite fabulous, this inner world of wonder that she describes. But I'm not sure if this is what I'm supposed to be doing in meditation. And that is very typical of a question that people will ask. And really, I suppose for me, it goes right back to the basics of there are so many different forms of meditation, because, you can follow a specific type of meditation, such as TM, Transcendental Meditation. And to be honest, I am not the world's authority on meditation. I don't actually know what the TM practice is, whether that's following a mantra or whatever that be. But so there's things like TM, or what I do is the sort of meditation which really is just a mindful meditation where you just sit and you just be as much as possible. And the mindful aspect of it is to bring your attention back from any train of thought that you get caught upon. You try to bring yourself back, and therefore what you notice is the amount of thinking that you have within, and that gently subsides. And so the more you practice it, the more it's not about necessarily the more peace. What does Sally say? Yeah, so Sally says, I always think that meditation means you sort of empty your mind and just think about nothing. No, you see, that's not the case. And even with the mindfulness meditation, what you become aware of is that your mind, your thoughts, have got caught on a train of thought, and you are off on the train of thought. Okay, now, in these instances, as I've said very often, the train of thought could be, I must go to the shops. I've got to go to the shops these days because I'm going to have to wear a bloody mask, blah, 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 or whatever. Let's not go into the mask thing just yet. We'll come on to that shortly. So, and then you think, well, I've got to, while I'm out, I might as well take the car to the garage. And then you think, oh, well, those tires I bought the last time for the car weren't really very good. And then you think, oh, well, those tires that my brother had, they were really good. Oh, I remember the last time I spoke to my brother. I really must phone my brother again. It's a train of thought that is this random kind of connection that all minds have when they're in monkey chatter mode. So when you become aware that you're on that train of thought, you pull yourself back to the breathing, back to the body. That's the mindfulness type meditation that I like to do. And I think that's the easiest. But it's not about trying to experience an emptiness. It's about being observant. Now, of course, meditation is trying to open up the gap to allow space for information to come in, right? So on one hand, I'm saying, no, it's not about trying to create that space, but the key is the trying. Hello, Stevie, good to see you. Anna, hello. So in one sense, I'm saying, yes, it's about not trying. And the other sense is, yes, what you're trying to achieve is to open up that space to allow information to come in. That usually is, you will experience it as being observations, probably from spirit, okay? So, but what Sally is doing is very, very, very reminiscent of what a lot of really sensitive people do, which is to start with, they get caught up in their own amazing adventures as they sit and they go off into their, what might be called a fantasy world. Now, I wouldn't call that a fantasy world, because I would say that there are teachings to be had in those journeys, because that can very easily be translated with a little bit more focus into shamanic journeying. You know, all you need to do from the point of view of changing it from maybe feeling like a bit of a daydream and wandering around in this, what did she call it? Private inner world of wonder, to being a kind of a purposeful shamanic journey with intent, is to do a little bit more focus up front, and then you're journeying, you're following the path, you're following what the people that you meet in your the inner world are telling you and showing you. That's the way that I would kind of react to this sort of stuff. You see, the bottom line is that absolutely none of us experiences our inner world or even the outer world in exactly the same way. So people like Anna Smith there, nice of Anna to drop in on the live. It's very off-putting when somebody you know, I mean, I know you all, but you know what I mean. I dropped into Anna's live because she's does house healing work as well, and she was doing great stuff. And it's always off-putting when you see somebody there that you think, oh yes, well they're wondering what I'm going to say next. So none of us have the same way of seeing the world. So Anna is incredibly visual orientated. She's lived with spirit and walked in line in tandem in the two worlds way all her life, right? So in that respect, couldn't be more different from me, for example. Now, what's interesting with Sally asking the question about the meditation is that actually Sally has the capability and the natural gift of absolutely walking in step in the two worlds. But what happened, I won't go into details, but because it's personal stuff and we haven't, Sally hasn't given me permission to discuss this, but things happened for Sally that actually made her cut those connections to the magical spirit world dead. They cut them off, right? Unlike what Anna's experience of life and growing up and moving through the world, as far as I know. So what you're doing here now in these magical meditations where you're going off in your private inner world of wonder is sort of what I would expect you to do at this stage as a beginner. I mean, you've started, good for you. You've actually started, you've got over the biggest hurdle, which is to sit in meditation in the first place and actually do it. And so what I would say to you is don't worry about going off on those magical journeys that you are experiencing at this stage. Just let them happen. What you can do, what I would suggest you do, is you become aware, rather like when you're lucid dreaming, which we've talked about before. That's not true, Sally. You get a lot of stuff right. I'm not sure quite why we got the extra interference there, Carol, but there we go. Maybe there's something else going on. You've got to be comfortable for the information. But what I would say is, what you could do is just treat it rather like lucid dreaming, where in a lucid dream you become aware that you're dreaming, but the dream still carries on. So what I would say in the meditation, Sally, is that enjoy it and relax into it and go with it, but also instead of, like I said in my mindful meditation process, where I sort of, I'm on this train of thought, randomly thinking about my brother and car tires, pull myself back to stage one, which is the breathing back into the body, and therefore disconnect from the train of thought. What I would say to you is don't disconnect from it completely. Just be aware that, we're on, I'm having one of these, I'm doing this, right. Now, is there, and in that meditation state, ask upstairs, is there something that you want to show me specifically in that meditation? And just see what happens. So you're using your natural, wonderful natural sensitivity just to flow and to go where and be guided by your inner world, right? So yay, you got something right, but you got a lot of things right, and that's good. So the other thing, if there are any questions on that, do shout. I'll come back to Sally's second question because I just want to pick up Jenny's question earlier on. Also, guys, do say if I'm just rambling incessantly and not giving you a moment to ask the questions. I want to go back to Jenny's question, which is, in view of this being a living planet, do you think our pain and stress affect nature and the weather? Yes, very much, very much, very much. I do. And part of that is, there's so many anecdotal ways that we can sort of kind of sign up for that as a belief system, as a pattern of belief. And one of them, of course, is again thinking about shamanic work or medicine men, the work of medicine men and women, those that are actively involved in the sort of indigenous tribes in particular. You know that they affect, the rain dance, for goodness sake, I mean, that's the bluntest, most obvious way of describing it. But it's a deeper connection to the environment. I mean, the weather, you're down south, I think you're having the storms. And does that directly reflect what you individually are feeling inside? Well, maybe. But then, we've had, as the photograph shows on the thumbnail, we've had days and days of cloud up here. We haven't had the thunderstorms up here at all. which I'm quite grateful for, to be honest. But we've had days and days of cloud. What does that mean? Does that mean anything symbolically, particularly about me and the way I'm feeling? Not really. Obviously, like many people going into winter, you can get affected by seasonal affective disorder, so you get sad. But no, we're linked to the environment on a far deeper level, as you know, really, Jenny. We are linked as a species. It's absolutely a part of us, and so this is why I really do think this is why something like gardening, which I always, when I was younger, I always thought was like, well, why do people do that? God, who wants to spend hours and hours on their knees digging up weeds and planting things? Well, actually, now I do. And I find it incredibly relaxing, but it's not only because it's a sort of a repetitive process, but also because you're connecting to living things. And the more we exhibit and we treat other things that are in our direct awareness with love and compassion, and we assist things to grow, the more we, in a way, we are directing that positive energy towards ourselves. And that's why I really do believe that this is growing stuff is vitally important to one's well-being. It's incredibly grounding as well. Yeah, it is. Overall, as we look at global climate change, then that's the state of the environment generally, as we're led to believe, is indicative of our disconnection from it. So in a way, what we've got is the forces of nature, the management indicating our disconnect through the forces of nature. If we go down another layer of perspective from our observational viewpoint, we've been talking very much in the spiritual level, but in terms of separateness. If we go down another layer and we take it from Donald Hoffman's viewpoint, and some of you will have read some of Donald Hoffman's work, then that nature, the energies of nature, the information that comes to us and we process and interpret as nature is purely information. So we are literally creating the impression of nature being out there. So in that sense, then you can see that there's absolutely no way that nature can be separate. Now, one of the interesting things about COVID-19 is that a lot more people apparently seem to be wanting now to move house. And again, you'll start to see news items about this. If I know I say don't watch the media, but if you're taking a kind of a view on a fairly, what we could hope to be a non-biased and fairly reliable news source, not necessarily the BBC, then you may well find that you'll see more and more information about more and more people wanting to move out of cities and into the countryside, which I think is really interesting, because actually, to me, what that says is that's symbolic of people wanting to actually take more control of their lives, have more control of their lives. In other words, what we talk about on this channel, which is about stepping back into our power. If you're making choices to move house and to change the way that you live and change the way that you behave in your own individual life, then you are stepping more into your power. If you're not taking stuff for granted or taking stuff at face value, and you're considering the information that comes to you and evaluating it and not reacting to it, but allowing yourself to be mindful and then respond to it, the difference between stop reacting, which is knee-jerk, non-thinking, that's the habitual way of reacting. Allow it, assess it, feel it, and then respond, which is a proactive way of reacting to information that's coming to you. Don't react, you respond. If you're doing that, then you're stepping into your power, because as soon as you take any opportunity to assess circumstance, information coming to you, information being presented to you, and you go through that process of taking the pause and allowing yourself to respond in a way that feels in alignment with your heart, then that means you are stepping into your power. So from a very straightforward, Lady Hayes, good to see you. Dixie, hey, good to see you down there in Australia. 4 o'clock here, so it must be around about 3ish or something in the morning. Do you get any sleep these days, Dixie? So good question, Jenny. Lovely question. Do we feel that we're in the middle of the sixth, what do we call it? The sixth, I wrote it down somewhere. The sixth extinction event. Do we feel that at 1 a.m.? Hey. No, I don't think so. No, interestingly, about 20 minutes before I came on live to do the live, 1 a.m. in Tasmania. Of course, you're very close, Anna and Dixie, in terms of being on the same side of the world, same part of the world. Do we think we're in the sixth extinction event? Well, 20 minutes before I came online to do the live, I saw on my Facebook page that I'd land on, onto the page that everybody gets suggestions from. I had a suggestion of a video by Greg Braden and what's his name, Bruce Lipton. Great, fantastic. You think that's lovely. And there they were discussing. I just dipped into it. There they were discussing in very positive terms the way that epigenetics can work on the evolution of the species and the power of change, and talking all about COVID-19 as this opportunity for change if we are willing to step into our power. I came offline and I went back to YouTube again, just literally before setting up the live, pressing the button here. What was there on the YouTube suggestions this time? I'll come to your question in a second, Mercury Touch. But David Icke. And I thought, well, okay, well, let's see what Mr. Icke has got to say for himself. And it was completely the opposite, because David Icke has always been such an angry man. No, he's not angry. You're quite right. He's not angry. He's frustrated at not being able to get more people to listen to his message, and therefore it comes across as anger. And it was actually really quite a shock to see the difference between the Greg Braden presentation, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and then a few minutes later, David Icke. So why am I saying this? Because these two things are completely different and opposing views on the world. David Icke is there saying, right, this is Agenda 21, this is the control of the species, this is the world, you've got to wake up, this is your last opportunity, you're about to all get compulsory vaccination with all sorts of shit in it. Whereas Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton were like, okay, we can do something with this. We can work with this. This has changed. We've got to decide what we're going to do. And actually, of course, you know where my heart's going to be. David Icke. No, it's not. It's actually with both of them, because they're both actually, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely right. So is that me sitting on the fence? Because if anybody gives me any options on any subject, I will usually just try and look for the fence and sit right on the middle of that, because I can see both sides of any argument. But we absolutely have to make decisions about where we want to go from now, individually and collectively, because this is a period of change. This is a period of healing, COVID-19 as a background. We have to step into our power and not react, but whatever that other word was that I used earlier on. What is that word that I used? Remind me. Not react, but respond. Thank you. Respond. Yeah, Dixie, he was talking about the fact that he's being banned in a lot of countries. And it's very interesting that he has been banned. He's been banned on the grounds of hate speech. He's not, as far as I can see, actually peddling hate speech, but he does get very adamant about his message. And clearly, he's also a usurper of the norm for society. And actually, that's exactly what Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton were talking about, is that this is a time that things have to change. If we carry on going and behaving as we have been, individually and collectively, then we will end up in the sixth extinction event. If we change, as a lot of people are choosing to do, by all their own individual little choices, then the chances are that things will come back to a better status quo. Because the biggest thing that we can do actually is to change and become aware of our own power, and therefore the external world will change as we collectively do that, right? I've said this so many times. Bottle time, yes. I thought you meant a different bottle there. Okay, so what I'm saying now to you, to everybody, is, and to myself, it's a time to make choices. Maybe if we've got time, we'll come back round and have a look at some of the stats, or what we believe to be the stats on COVID-19, and actually also to highlight something that we did in the meditation group. A few weeks ago, at the beginning of the month, we had a meditation about COVID-19, and I will share something with you about that as well. Diggsy, yeah, his channel with London Reels was banned a little while. Mark, yep, the collective is influenced by us individually. Exactly. That's what I guess you're saying there, Mark. Yes, well, in fact, some people are simply born in that role of control to control. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, exactly. So I was just wanting to come back round to Mercury Touch, who's trying to get a few interesting questions about earth energy in here, which of course is completely appropriate and apt for the conversation, and for the conversation about personal choice. Because, as I've said many times, earth energy is our link between the inner universe and the outer, the seemingly outer perception of the world. I still don't know, and I don't know whether I'll ever know in my lifetime, whether the earth energy flows that we pick up, we know that we are picking up more intense focuses of earth energy, and therefore they come across as like lines and spirals and all of these patterns and interference patterns, rather like magnetism does. But I still don't know whether they are really reflecting, when we find these lines and flows, whether we're reflecting and tuning into the actual quantum level of existence, or whether we're actually looking at the electrical aspect of reality, because these are geomagnetic and electrical fields. I mean, we live in an electrical field. It's we ground electricity through us all the time. So we're functioning, we live in this electrical environment, and the universe probably is electrical too. So what I'm getting at is, coming back to Mercury Touch's question, is there a link between the spirit of the house and the main energy center? The bottom line is, Mercury Touch, without going into too much detail, is that the two are very much linked. And one of the ways in which they're linked is that as you settle in and focus with the main positive and beneficial earth energy power center in your home, then you are actually physiologically connecting to greater and deeper level to all of the sixth sense, to all your sixth sense abilities, right? So your inner universe is being boosted by sitting or tuning into that spiral vortex, because it's a vortex, it's a three-dimensional vortex. Okay, it's not just a two-dimensional spiral. When you find it, it's a vortex. What that means is that you can communicate, and the spirit of the house, the essence of the house, the guardian nature of the house, can communicate with you more accurately and more clearly if you are open to it. Yeah. Oh no, good point, Ginger Cat. That's a good point. Yes. Everyone to find your nature and calm your emotions in this way. Oh, maybe I've missed a bit. Should this method be applied while meditating? I'm not sure what method that is, Keith. Sorry. Stephen, Barefoot Doctor was a fabulous guy, so open-hearted. I mean, like all of us, he had some funny quirks, but he knew that. So anyway, so Mercury touch. The power center is part of the picture that you're going to find within a building, within a property. And so the essence of a property, if you're talking about spirit of place in terms of just the essence, the feeling of a building, then the earth energy is going to contribute to a very large degree to the feeling of the property. When you go to a sacred site, or when you stand in a cathedral and you can instantly step into a space that is so incredibly peaceful, that's earth energy. That is what is giving you that feeling of complete bliss. And so therefore, in that sense, the earth energy in a building will completely contribute to the spirit of place, the essence of the feeling of the place. Pop some more sort of questions in there, Mercury Touch, if I'm not making the connections that you want to kind of understand about, okay? Did you get oh, right, okay, that's there, right? You got the thank you. Okay, so bless you. I mean, it's earth energy to me is the real it's a strange expression, but the real gold of connecting to a property, more than any of the other almost 50 or so aspects when we're doing house healing that we can connect with, and we can ask the management to clear, we can ask the management to shift stuff around. But earth energy to me will always be my first love in that sense, because it is so incredibly powerful, and it is the essence. It's the doorway and the gateway and the bridge and all of these expressions between our real true selves and creation. So that's why really it is so incredibly important. Okay, so this comes back. So Sally made a second point actually in her email. We were talking about Sally and the meditating earlier on, and Sally made another point. I won't read it precisely, I'll just try and summarize this bit. She's been doing a lot of writing. Memories have been coming up, and she's been writing down the memories, which is great. And because what you need to be aware of is that Sally is stepping into her power, because she's wanting to explore this side of her that she closed off for so many years, which is the intuitive side. And as she says, right, she writes down things and then it sparks off another thought, and then she writes that down and it sparks off another thought. And they're doing up the house at the moment because they're one of the many people in the UK that wants to sell their house to move out to the countryside. And she said, "Is writing this is like trying to fix the house." I'm sure, she says in a half tongue-in-cheek way, that there's a deep and meaningful connection in there somewhere, but I can't. But all I can think of is that neither factor is enabling much progress. That's just her being self-derogatory. But actually, the process of writing for her and for many others that start to open the door to intuition after maybe having ignored it for a long time, the process of writing down memories and revisiting the energies of circumstance and scenarios that have affected you either positively or negatively is a healing process, and it's a gathering together energetically of thoughts and arranging it. And it's rather like tidying up your desk before you change the thing that you're working on. You sort of, oh yeah, right, done that, put all that away, and then you can get on with the next aspect. That's a little bit what Sally's doing there with writing down her thoughts and stuff. And yes, of course, actually, in the bigger picture of her world, of her and her husband, sorting out the house, tidying the house, decorating the house, fixing and doing the jobs that needed to be doing in order to put it on the market, that is also collecting and gathering and putting things into position. So although we wouldn't say that there's a direct link, cause and effect, or symbolically, massively reflective one of the other, they are all part of the same picture. And that increasingly is increasingly is the way to view life, whether it be your own life or the life of a client. You can look at the circumstances that a client is going through, and without wanting to pull it all apart and extrapolate and try to logically think and understand, you can just see and feel, if you like, the overall picture of this person's world, because you can do that, and you can develop the skill to quite quickly see these comparisons and these complementary aspects of the picture of that person's world, right? Which is a very, very useful exercise. Yeah, exactly, Mark. It's earth energy, 100%. The ancients were deeply in tune with earth energy and these flows across the landscape. And yes, the house does represent the self in the same way as every aspect of your life actually reflects and represents and is an aspect of self. Pets, I mean, let's think about pets. I always wonder, but I know why, really. I've got a dog called Jasper. Some of you know him. Not that he does, writes emails or anything, but you've met him. And Jasper, bless him, actually has real trouble relating to the outside world. If he was a person, he would be declared autistic because he gets overloaded with information. He's a border collie, and he gets so much input that he can't cope. And so we say, well, what does that represent of me? Well, I don't think I need to say any more. People describe me as a hermit, and actually I'm extremely comfortable being a hermit, to be honest. So that's my world after all of the years of going out and about. Keith, what have we got there then? The house I used to live in, used to be wetlands 80 years ago. Yeah, when dowsing, should I be expecting conflict negativity when connecting the spirit of land? Well, don't expect anything, Keith, and I know you might not have been using that as a particularly highlighted thing, but the one of the spookiest, no, I won't. One of the spookiest experiences I had actually was driving across some reclaimed land in the Fens here in England, which is a very large area of reclaimed land, and I felt absolutely the need to drive very fast, because actually the spirit of land was really unhappy about the fact that all of this land was reclaimed land, and why had humans reclaimed it. And it kind of felt to me like they wanted me to do something about it, but this was some years ago, but it was a very peculiar experience. So Keith, don't be put off by the idea that you might. And what I would do actually, Keith, let's just give you a hint here. With something like that, which now I've kind of psyched you up for maybe detecting when you're dowsing, you might kind of get a negative response because I've psyched you into that kind of mindset. So what I would do, if you haven't already heard about blind dowsing, I would do a bit of blind dowsing. So write on 2 identical bits of paper a Y for yes and an N for no, put them there, mix them up so you don't know which is which, and you douse which is the piece of paper that is going to give you the answer, okay? So you're not connecting your subconscious into, well, you're not directing your conscious connection into your dowsing, right? So try a bit of blind dowsing with your pendulum on that particular aspect, because it might be that actually the land is completely happy with it. Who knows? We don't know. Yeah, Keith will be doing that, and Anna. Cool. Yeah. So okay. Good. What are we on? Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes or so left. Where would you like this to go for the next 15 minutes? Kitty Chris said Lim. Yeah, that's fine. Good to see you there. Thanks for coming along. I know that these lives are becoming rather random, and I know that you're going to have trouble keeping up with when we're doing a live or not. But if you can, all of you, keep in sort of just click the grey bell icon, as everybody says on their channels, and then you will get notified. I think you'll get an email. How can you make the difference between the main energy center and the others in the house? Well, this is where dowsing comes in, Mercury touch. This is really exactly what it is. Dowsing, when you're working with earth energy and working with the energy aspects of a house or a place, you are working purely from intent. So I'll say that again. You're working purely from intention. So when you're dowsing, and you haven't got a specific thing that you're looking for, right? So, most people regard dowsing as looking for water, for example. So if you're looking for water, then you tune in, you connect, you think of water and how you kind of visualize and feel as clearly as you can water, and how you perceive that water might be underground, because you might be looking for water in a pipe. That's one thing. So you'd want to visualize it in a pipe of some kind. But if you were looking for underground water, if you were wanting a vertical flow of water coming up to the surface, so that you might use like a spring, then you want to be visualizing that. So what I'm getting at is, it is your intention that is setting that is connecting to that visualized feeling and visual aid. Okay, so when you are working with earth energy, you're doing exactly the same thing. You are setting your intention to find the most positive and beneficial earth energy power center in the house. So you are literally going to be saying that as part of the question. Show me where the most positive and beneficial earth energy power center is in this room, in this house, in this garden, in this sacred site. The rod will move, because you are expressing your intention to find a very specific thing by the words you're using. Energy, right? That's the intention being set. So in dowsing, and in dowsing a space, so when we're teaching the dowsing, then all of the different aspects that the dowsers are looking for, they are slightly recalibrating with every section heading. So if they're looking for spirits, then they're focusing on the spirits. If they're looking for earth energy, they're focusing on the earth energy. It's purely a focus and a shift of feeling. Okay. Ginger Cat, I was smiling at yours. Hints or tips? Well, I can't say specifically for you. I mean, what I would say is pick up a pendulum, learn to dowse. If you don't dowse already, learn to dowse, and then ask the questions about the flat or the house. But also go with your heart. Buying a house is always about compromise, but if you set your heart for a specific type of house, then you will know when you find it. There's a very practical thing to do as well, actually, which has nothing to do with sixth sense. It's completely the opposite. It's a very logical thing to do, and that is to create a database, a spreadsheet of everything that you're looking for, and you want your property to have, and you give it a value out of 10. And then when you go and see a property, when you go and go and view a flat or a house, you actually just put down your marks on your spreadsheet. I know this has got nothing to do with sixth sense and intuition, but it's a really useful way of assessing how much do you really like this house? Because sometimes you can get properties that's so close. But the main thing is, what I would say is go with your heart, Ginger Cat. But learn to dowse, because it will really help you. If you can get confident enough with your dowsing, you can really it can really help you in those kind of decisions. But don't dive in with massive life-changing decisions with your dowsing until you're confident about the way that your dowsing works and it has become part of your way of life. Okay, because otherwise chaos can ensue. Yeah, well, that's exactly right, Dixie. I know you're having this conversation about the book. That's exactly right. And actually, that's quite useful for me, because I've kind of hit a roadblock with my book. So I'm going to get back on again with it. Yes. Yes, that's fine. Right, Pebbles, is it possible to create beneficial energy in a house as I practice meditation and distant healing in a room? My cat now sleeps on the floor, exactly where I focus my intentions. Yeah, I mean, some people say categorically that cats really like detrimental energy, and it's just possible that your cat actually is a part of your healing process, that actually cats also in liking. Over and out, Dixie. Good to see you. Get some kit. Hope your little one's well. So that with your cat sleeping in the power center, actually, it's doing a lot of the healing and work. Sorry, I'll slow down a bit. Your cat sleeping on the power center may be doing some of the healing work for you, because it may be, as seems to be the case, is that cats actually sort of transpose some of the energy, the more detrimental energies, into positive energies. We don't know for sure, but that's anecdotal suggestion from some people. So Pebbles, but for sure, the more you meditate and the more you can raise your vibration in that sense of just pulling the energy and allowing the energy to flow through the lower chakras and up to the higher chakras, living more from your heart and then more from here and here, and even ideally from this crown chakra, adding that into the balance. The more you can do that, then the more positive, in our labels sense, your earth energy power center is going to be. Okay, you can, again, if you can learn to dowse, if you're not already a dowser, Pebbles, you can actually see by dowsing how much that energy center is growing, because it will grow. It will not only grow in the number of radials, straight lines coming out from the center, but it will also literally grow in terms of size that you can find in the thing, and you'll feel the difference in the room and in the house overall. So yeah, it's all about connecting, using your energy, using energy from source that you're pulling down in that very simple way, that you're, through intention, pulling it down through your head into your system and out through your heart, affecting the environment in which you live, the subtle realms in which you live. Everybody does it. Everybody does it automatically, but a lot of the time we're using our own energy, and sometimes it's only just kind of it's almost like it's just dribbling out this energy field. I'm not necessarily talking about the auric field, but we affect things, and really, if we could measure it, then actually our electromagnetic field would go as far as we ever perceive it to be. So we would say, well, I can see the horizon, which is probably a mile away. Actually, my energy field goes right out there, but so do a lot of other people's, but they're all on slightly different vibrations, because they're all connecting back to those individuals as their own co-creators. They're not me. So they're not in my energy. They are in my energy field. My energy field is being shared in that sort of way we talked about overall earlier, about aspects always being part of the overall picture. So my world is part of somebody else's world, and probably over there, maybe 100 or so other people sharing the same sort of information, but not the unique exact information. Does that make sense? I don't know whether that made any sense whatsoever. Anyway, how are we doing? So Last minute questions. Some really nice questions come in today. Thank you very much for these. Well, it's not so much saying Mercury touch, not so much saying that the energy center itself it has an energy center like a spirit, but there is a spirit guardian aspect that you can douse and speak to if you wish to, if you're that on that path. Within all houses, all properties, all spaces have those aspects that can be spoken to, and they are a part of the bigger picture. They are part of the picture, part of the presenting pattern of reality at that point. So don't think of it so much as the individual spiral having a spirit. It has a consciousness overall. So earth energy itself is in many ways consciousness flowing, and earth energy itself will be the conduit and the channel for your creative, your information as a co-creator of everything. All of those heartfelt emotional responses get carried on earth energy, within earth energy, away to the creator, the ultimate creator, to your guides and all of that stuff. And the planet, the earth, the physical structure and the management and you have a role in the actual creation and the formulation of what you then experience. So in that respect, we say that, creation is ongoing, moment by moment, because as all of the great philosophers and mind, body, spirit teachers say, there is only now. Eckhart Tolle, there is only now, only ever now, and that's what's being created from moment to moment to moment. And that's why my guides always used to say that the world, well, not my guides, my one guide, Earthen, the world is not what it seems, because it isn't just that separate physicality. And you are not your physical being. We've talked, that's a lot of what we've talked about in the past. We'll talk about it again. Because actually it's the hardest thing for people to really get their heads around, is that, we are not this. And this is not one single body. This is a constantly fluctuating infinite number of representations depending on choices of the consciousness within at any one moment. But the probabilities are that we stay in the conscious form that we exhibit, that we are. So the impression is that our body remains solid like this. Now, this isn't science. This is, learning and a different approach to looking at life. So it's not scientific. There's no scientific evidence for that. Although my friend Ian Jameson might come up with some science one day on it, with a bit of luck, and we'll talk to him again soon. So hopefully some of that has been helpful. I feel drawn to just leave you with some COVID-19 stuff. Okay. Obviously, if you all disappear now, then I know you're definitely not interested in this sort of thing. But we did in our meditation. We have a group. No, it's not Mercury touch. No, it's a different aspect. I won't talk about that now, but I'll talk about that next time if you like, in September. I think we're doing another, on the 14th of September, we'll be doing another live, and I'll make a note to talk about that then. So, in our monthly meditations, first Monday of every month, we do a meditation. And this last time we did a meditation about COVID-19. And before that meditation, certainly I was feeling that, shall we say, the mortality rate, the fatality rate was, let's talk about the UK, was somewhere around, maybe up as high as 5%. What was I basing that on? Oh, just some really early information. And in fact, I've got a little article here from The Spectator magazine, which is a journal here in the UK, and written in March, so at the beginning of the pandemic, if we want to call it that. They were talking there about the early figures reported from China and Italy suggested a death rate of 5%, up to 15%, which was similar to Spanish flu. So I won't go into detail of all of this, but so that was the sort of basic fatality rate that was expected and continued to be expected. Okay, take care. See you, Lady Hayes. Lady Hayes. Take care. Did the meditation, and there's another article here, 8th of August, 2020. Basically, do you know what? I wish I hadn't started this because, well, anyway, bottom line, sorry. I wish I hadn't started this because I haven't got the specific information I wanted to speak to you about, but I'll talk about it to the meditation group. But basically, the actual fatality rate here in the UK is something like 0.0 something %, which is supposedly lower than seasonal flu on the whole. So where does this leave us, and where does that leave us with compulsory vaccinations? Well, watch this space, because that's the next one to deal with. So basically, just assess all your information, live by your heart, and take your choices and make your choices wisely based on what your heart tells you to. Shall we leave it at that? What an anticlimax. No, it's not an anticlimax. Take care. Take care, Keith. See you soon. Hope you're having a bit more fun with your dowsing. And so, there we go. Okay, so we'll see you next time. So the next time that we'll all meet on a live here on YouTube is the 14th of September. If anybody wants to get involved in the monthly meditation groups, then, okay, that's fair enough, Margie. Okay. Thanks, Mercury Touch. Take care. The meditation groups on the first week of each month. That's the 7th of September. And see you, Mark. Thanks very much. Take care. See you, Sally. Bye-bye, Martin. See you soon. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Stevie, bye. Melinda, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yeah, good. Cool. Gonna press the button now. See you guys. See you later.